It might be a no. Yeah, that's okay, I got it. All right, so, Dr. Burke.
Yeah, so welcome to this public meeting. This is our annual public meeting on our first reading, and I would like to turn it over to Mr. Kress, who's going to take us through this briefly before we have our regular board meeting starting at 6 p.m.
Thanks, sir. So, board members, thank you all for showing up to the first grading meeting. What is School First? School First is like our STAR test for the finances for the school district. It's the financial integrity rating system of Texas. It was started back in 2001. And the primary goal of the School First is to make sure that we achieve quality performance in our management of our fiscal duties as a district. We are required to hold this public meeting once our first rating comes out. And you get rated based on 4 standards. You get superior rating, above standard rating, meet standard rating, and substandard achievement. And thinking with the end in mind, I'd rather just celebrate now that we did get another superior rating. So, very important for us. There's 20 criteria. This data is based off the 2020-2021 school year. And we earned a 94 out of 100, which gave us the superior rating. I'm going to go briefly through the different indicators, just hitting the highlights. The first question that we get all the time is, did we do an audit and did we turn it in on time? And so we did, so we got points for that. The second was our audit clean? Are we doing things in the district with our finances and reporting with the compliance pieces correctly? And so we had a very clean audit with no material weaknesses. Were we compliant with our payment terms? So all our debt that we take on as a district, when we build new buildings, we have a debt payment. And so we met all our debt payments that we were supposed to for that year. Did we make contributions and make payments to all our government agencies, which is like TRS, different groups that we have to pay into, the State Workforce Commission, the IRS. So we met all our obligations. Indicator 5 has been not on there for about 3 years because of COVID. So I'm skipping that one. They didn't score that one. Also on number 6, they look at our fund balances, our assigned and unassigned fund balance. Did we have 3 months to cover our expenses? We did. They look at our cash on hand. Do we have enough cash on hand to cover our expenses up to 6 months? And we also scored 10 points on that because we had enough cash in our bank to make sure that we can make all our obligations on payroll and all our vendor responsibilities. Then they look at our assets versus our liabilities. Do we have more assets than we do have liabilities? They look at a ratio. We do have more assets, and that includes buildings and land and everything that the district owns. So our liabilities are lower than our assets, and so we got all the points on that. When they look at our general fund revenues, do we make more revenue during the year than we spend? Just like your own personal life, do you make enough money to make all your payments that you have to make as far as your expenditures? And we did. So we got all the points on that. 10 was not scored. They also looked at our long-term liabilities versus assets again to make sure that we can sustain this in a long term. And we scored all 8 out of 10 points on that. They look at our property value and what we're assessing as far as taxes, and they look at our long-term debt as well to make sure that we can raise enough funds on our debt side to make our debt payments. They look at number 13. We get the question a lot is like how much do we spend on administrative costs at central office? And so there's a ratio that the state looks at and says, is this district top heavy? And so if you have a lot of people at central office, you get a lot lower score. And our score was an 8 out of 10 points, which is really good. Most districts fluctuate between 6 and 8. And so 14, did the school district have a 15% decline in students versus staff over the 3 years? And so we did not have a decline, so we got all 10 points on this. 15 wasn't scored. And then the audit you see in front of you that you're going to see tonight, they take our audit, the state does, and they compare that to our PEEM submission. So would the auditors come in and they look at all our documentation, look at all our expenditures, does that, what we turned into the state directly from the school, match our audit? And so we did, and we met that indicator. So we had accuracy for our data that we're reporting and also what the auditors are turning into the state. 17, did the external auditor come in and make sure that we were compliant with all our federal funds, which we were, and we had a clean audit and had no reporting, no material weaknesses in our compliance piece for our federals. Did the auditor come in and look at all our grants and contracts and laws and making sure that we're following our procedures and our policies and all the ideas behind the contract? And so we met all the points on that. Number 19, Did we post all the required financial documents on our website? We have to post the first rating, we have to post our budgets, the superintendent contract, different things. They look into that. We scored all of those indicators. And then every year, as the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, I have to share with the board when we have property value growth. In the past, we used to get a bump in taxes and state aid. We no longer get that. And I have to share that with you. It's an actual indicator that we do that, and I have to show proof that we did that. So we passed that. So in addition, so you have your 20 indicators. Back in 2007, part of the first public hearing is to disclose certain items. The first is the superintendent employee's contract. So there's the website that you can download and go see it. It is actually on our website. So that's the URL address. You can go and take a look and see what's in the superintendent contract. Disclosures, reimbursements received by the superintendent and the board members. This was the year of COVID, 2020, 2021, so the expenditures are a lot lower. Usually there's, we have, transportation and meals and conferences that the board we're required to go to. So there's some disclosures on what was spent there. Was any outside compensation from the superintendent? There was none reported. Was there any board members that received any gifts over $250? Nothing was reported. And is there any business transactions between the school district and board members? None was reported. And so this is our 20th year in a row being a superior rating. So we're pretty excited. There's a lot of people that go into this, and with the support of the school board, Dr. Versif, and senior staff. And so that is the end of the presentation. So if there's any comments.
Thank you, Brandon. Good job.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments on the report? No? Okay.
I just want to say congratulations again to Brandon and the staff. I know I see Jason and Dan. It takes a whole team to make sure that they have that superior rating every year. And so just congratulations. It's a big deal in the golf world. So well done.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I think they deserve a round of applause.
Yeah, there you go. I'll send it one time.
Take a picture with Dr. Board
Members, do you have any comments or questions? No? Okay, then we will adjourn this meeting at, what is that?
5:52.
Okay, no, that's not right. 5:52. At 6 o'clock, Dr. Versto.
Yes, good evening, board members and community staff and students. Thank you for being at this regular board meeting November 15th. I'd like to start this off by introducing Mr. Roger Campos, who's going to lead us in our pledge of allegiance. The invocation pledge of allegiance. Sorry. It's been a homework, Roger.
Thank you. Dear God, we seek your help with our affairs today. Bless this meeting with your divine intelligence and help us to make the best use of our own. Please share a little of your wisdom with us to help us do right by all concerned. Thank you for your heavenly blessing. May each one of us be inspired to respond to the opportunities for better serving our fellow man. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Campos.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So today we're going to start our meeting off with our recognition. We're going to recognize our students of the month from elementary, middle school, and high school. We have with Jennifer Collier who's going to lead us in that. And then we ask everyone to hang out just for a few minutes because I think we have a special presentation following those three. So I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Collier at this time.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The student of the month for Hidden Cove STEAM Academy is 5th grader Genevieve Casares. Genevieve is described as a bright student and works consistently to exceed expectations. Her most recent accomplishment includes building an inclusive book club that encourages her fellow students to read. She worked hard to lead the mission to create the student group, recruit her fellow classmates, and worked with her teacher and the librarian to build this club. Her teachers describe her work as top-notch and add she's an impressive student with an amazing work ethic. We know that Genevieve is on a path to accomplish any goals she sets out to achieve. Congratulations. The student of the month for Southwest Legacy High School is Mauricio Hernandez. He is described as a natural leader. He is the senior class president, and he is president of student council. Mauricio devotes his time to his school and his community. In addition to hold his office positions, he also devotes his spare time to the Southwest Legacy community. He participates in the Interact Club and assists with fundraising projects that will help to fund community service projects such as building gardens on campus. Mauricio is also a member of the Southwest Legacy Best Buddies organization and helps with special needs students on campus. Mauricio is currently enrolled in the practicum for auto collision, and he's working on his industrial certifications. He plans to continue his education at St. Philip's College with the Alamo Promise Scholarship and would one day like to run his own business. Congratulations.
Flip it around. There you go.
And smile. 1, 2, 3. Hang on 1 second. Any family members?
See one right there.
So we'd also like to ask if the family members of our two students who are up here, if you're up here supporting one of these, would you please stand and let us recognize you, because behind our students of the month are our families. And if our two principals are in here, by the campuses represented, would you please stand? Guys, thank you so much. Thank you for letting us honor you, and congratulations on being recognized as your campus student of the month. It's a big deal. We won't keep you up here any longer. You're all-
Please take a seat, thank you. And next I will turn it over to Director of Community Education, Adult Education is Victoria Gaeta, and Executive Director of Fine Arts, Richard Flores, for a Blue Santa update.
Good evening, Dr. Verstiff and members of the board. We're here to officially invite each and every one of you to our annual Blue Santa Parade and our community festival. And we want to thank you for always supporting the event. It's a great event, combination of a lot of work and a lot of partners that are involved in this that are just willing to do it every year. Unfortunately, this year, as everything else is delayed in the mail, so is Blue Santa. He is usually here with us today, but he won't be with us today. But he will be with us at our press conference, which is December 6th at Sky Harbor Elementary at 9:30 a.m. And the parade is December 10th, 10 o'clock a.m. So we hope to see everybody there with their bells and whistles and making a lot of noise and representing Southwest. We are hosting it this year, so you know it's always bigger and better when we host it.
Yep.
I'll let Mr. Flores give information on the poster contest.
So every year we host a poster contest for all of our community as well as the South San community as well. And students work on the theme. This year the theme is Blue Santa's Galactic Christmas. And so we're very, very excited about that theme. The students were too. We got lots of entries from all of our schools as well as South San as well. We are going to recognize our poster winners. We did this a little bit different this year where we are going to be recognizing age categories. And in the past, we just did one overall winner and then a second and a third place and honorable mention. But now we're doing the same for age categories as well. So we have our younger students, our 7th and 8th year olds, and then our 9s and 10s, and then we also had middle school category as well. And so we have a first, second, third place, and an honorable mention in each one of those categories. And that artwork was due October 27th, and it was judged on November 3rd. And then that will be the poster that will be going out to the community as advertisement for the event on December 10th. And now I'll turn it over back to Ms. Galleta for that.
So if I can have, I'm gonna call your name, and if you don't mind coming and standing up here. The first person is
Actually, we were gonna bring everyone up.
Right.
Yeah.
Ashley Arredondo, Andrea Martinez, Aubrey Castañeda, Gracie Alvarado, Caleb Marquez, Joaquin Moreno, Isabel Echavarria, Nicole Wheeler, Layla Lily Chavarria, and Alicia Arispe.
I'm gonna force y'all to take a picture of it. I just wanna say, only at Southwest, the students knew exactly what to do.
Right here, nice big smile, and ready, and 1, 2, 3. One more, 1, 2, 3. Hang on 1 second. Smile.
I'd like to ask if our family members of our artists, if you're here, would you please stand up as well? And I want to thank you. Everyone show your certificate. Yeah, sure. Just don't cover your face. Yeah. Open it up. There you go. Just don't show, just don't cover it. All right. Ready? One more time. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. One more picture. So congratulations, Guy. Will you be at Blue Center?
Okay, if you,
You're there, we'll see you there. Okay?
Dr. Versa, we ask that they attend the event so that way you can get your actual prize. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's the winner? Oh, they don't do it till the.
That does conclude our recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. Versteff. Do we have anyone signed up for public comments? No? Okay. All right, so, we're gonna give a few minutes if y'all would like to, leave. The rest of the meeting is kind of boring. But you're welcome to stay, but if not, we'll give about 2 or 3 minutes and y'all can, leave. But thank y'all so much for coming. We appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna get back to the agenda. We have the consent agenda. Board members, you had that. Do we have any questions or anything you want further explanation on?
I move.
Okay, seeing that there's no questions, Mr. Brunel moves. I need a second. Daniel seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Items of information. The construction update?
No updates today.
Okay. Monthly tax report?
Yes, we start October is when we start fresh, so there's really not much to report. We have about 1.8% tax collection for the month of October, so it's really slow. Easy to
Okay. Monthly financial report, if you have any questions on that, you can get with Brandon. A monthly investment report, reports on gifts and bequests, enrollment report. How are we doing on the enrollment, Lloyd?
I'm gonna cover that.
Okay, you're gonna cover that? All right. Perfect. Okay, review of purchases over 50,000. Board members, any questions on those? Calendar of events, boot camp overview.
So today I have Adrian Ramirez, who is over DAEP at boot camp, and what we're doing is just kind of a informational overview over boot camp. We want to make sure that the board is up to date with some of our program details that we're doing as we go to be really efficient and make sure that we provide information. So some of the programs you don't get to hear about all the time and see, we get to bring that to you at these meetings.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Versta, senior leaders. Wanted to take this opportunity to share with you a little bit of information about our boot camp program. Boot camp does exist as a component of our disciplinary alternative education program, and there are several reasons why a student may actually find himself assigned to boot camp. Those reasons, it could be maybe the severity of an offense that is actually committed. It could also be the number of prior placements at DAEP. Those are a couple of reasons why a student may actually find themselves there. The typical placement at DAEP is 45 days, and while there, students do receive instructions for academic support. They also participate in a military-style physical component of that particular program. Students actually exit the program upon successful completion of their days there at boot camp, and while they're there, there is an emphasis on certain core values that drill instructors and staff at boot camp actually stress. What we did was we actually pulled some information about boot camp, our boot camp assignments, going back to 2018-19 up until today, and so we'll go ahead and take a look at some additional information, and we'll get to kind of the data here in just a second. I'll also emphasize some of those core values that I mentioned just a second ago also. The purpose of boot camp is to actually provide behavior interventions for students who have either committed a serious offense or reoccurring offenses while they are at their home campuses or while they're assigned to DAEP. The idea here is to actually create a more structured environment that meets the academic needs of students, but also incorporates a physical component as well. So students have an opportunity throughout the day at boot camp during any given day to participate in anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour of physical activity, physical training in the morning and in the afternoon. There are opportunities throughout the day also to kind of engage in some physical activity as well. And another goal is to also help students understand and develop self-discipline. I know that's a big part of what they try to teach students while they're at DAP, respect for authority, and really mutual respect as well, and kind of explore what mutual respect is and how that actually can help them in certain situations that they may find themselves in regarding behavior. There's also a leadership aspect to what they try to encourage students to explore while they're at DAP also. I know one way that they do this is by selecting squad leaders at boot camp. And so they do stress with students that there's an opportunity for leadership everywhere, not just at boot camp, but when you go back to your home campus, there are leadership opportunities there also. What we need to do is really seek those out and place, we want to encourage an interest in some of those opportunities that may pop up on campuses, that may exist on campuses. And of course, there are other characteristics also that are based on boot camp's core values, and a lot of times too, based on the needs of students also. So when we talk about core values over at boot camp, we're talking about really 5 main values that they really stress during the time that students are at boot camp. One of them is perseverance, and the idea of never giving up and just continuing to meet whatever goals they set for themselves while there. Those goals could be related to behavior. Those goals could be related to academics. A lot of times it's both. There's also helping them to develop a sense of responsibility and accountability regarding their actions, their own actions, their behaviors, and the choices that they actually make. There's an emphasis on integrity, and of course they talk a lot about discipline also, and then there's the exercise component that we talked about earlier as well. So these are the values that they really stress while students are assigned there at boot camp. As far as staff is concerned, there are 2 drill instructors there at boot camp, and those drill instructors take students, of course, through the physical component of, or the physical aspect of that particular program. There is one teacher who actually provides Edgenuity support and works with students and provides any assistance that students might need in the area of academics or instruction. And there's also a special education aid. The special education aid services and ensures that students receiving special education services get the support that they should be receiving. There is a special education teacher that they're at Crossroads that actually services students in all 3 programs that are there. The academy part of the program, the DAEP part of the program, and the boot camp part of the program. So that person actually provides oversight for any special education support that's needed across that particular program, or those 3 programs. So, any questions about staff? So when we take a look at the data, when we took a look at the data, we pulled data, we actually looked at, of course, the number of placements that have taken place throughout the years. In 2018-19, and we did go back to that year, 2018-19, there were 37 placements that took place over at boot camp. Of those 37 placements, 2 students completed the program. 34 of them actually ended the school year still enrolled in the boot camp program. Okay, 1 student who was assigned to that program did withdraw from the district actually. And so, in a minute, I'll kind of take us through a breakdown of maybe some of the reasons or some of the things that some factors actually that may have contributed to withdrawals especially for school years 2019. 20, and then for 2021, 2022. We'll take a closer look at those in just a second. During the 2019-2020 school year, there were 51 placements that took place. Of those 51 placements, 21 students completed their days there at boot camp. 13 of them ended the school year still there in the boot camp program. Now, I think it's important to stress, too, that when we talk about students ending the school year at boot camp, that doesn't always mean that students are going to return to that program at the beginning of the next school year. We take a close look at the number of successful days that students had that previous year. We also want to consider things that are going to help students with getting a good start the following year, hopefully, and in most cases, at a home campus. Okay, so just because they end the year there doesn't mean that they're starting there the following year. Okay? And so in 2019, going back to that school year, there were 4 students that did not report. They were actually assigned, but for some reason they didn't report to boot camp. And so, and we'll take a closer look at those numbers in a second. 11 of those students reported, of those 51 reported to boot camp, but at some point during their time in that program, they withdrew. Okay? And an interesting thing about that too is that a lot of times what we'll see are withdrawals, and then we see them return the following year to complete their days. Okay, so there were actually that school year 2 students who were placed at JJAEP and we'd have to go back to get the specific reasons, but sometimes there maybe it's there was another offense that takes place during their time at boot camp. It just kind of depends. So during the 2020-21 school year, there were no placements at boot camp. And so if we look down to at 21-22, we did see 46 placements. Of those 46 placements, 21 did complete that program. 10 students of the 46 were still enrolled in that program or still participating in that program at the end of the school year. Of those 46, 9 did not report of those 46, 4 reported, but they did not complete. They withdrew at some point during the school year. And so even if they attended one day, like orientation or something like that, but never went back, then we included those in that number. And then that year, we also saw 2 students placed at JJAEP. So during this school year, there have been 11 placements at boot camp. Currently, we have 13 assigned, though. So what we found is that 4 of those, and we've had a couple of them complete, but 4 of those actually returned from last school year. So we didn't include those in the 11 count because they were from the previous year. But they did actually come back to us to try to finish up their days. Of those 11, 1 reported, but withdrew shortly after reporting. Okay. So, any questions about the data? So if we take a closer look at what might have happened, and actually what I want to do is emphasize the did not report and then the reported but withdrew columns here. And so in the 2019-2020, and actually that should have been 2020 school year, there were 9. The 9 that reported to boot camp withdrew from the district, owing anywhere from 26 to 44 days. So they did actually spend some time in the program, but withdrew about the middle of the program. And so and then of course you'll see with the 44 days, those are the ones that actually they attended one day and they did not report after that. And so these are students that did not return to the district, okay? 3 students withdrew from the district, but they returned the following school year, only to withdraw again, still owing days at boot camp. 1 withdrew from the district, returned the following year, and graduated while they were at boot camp. So they did complete credits necessary to actually complete and to graduate. And then 2 withdrew from the district, and they never reported at all. They were placed, but did not report. So last school year, 4 students reported to boot camp, but withdrew from the district owing 15 to 41 days, and they did not return to the district. 1 was expelled to JAP. That student returned and completed boot camp. So he came back, finished, and finished his days there. 1 was expelled to JJAP, but withdrew from the district, and to our knowledge didn't report. So 4 students withdrew from the district, but they returned this school year, and they are currently there, working on completing their days. Okay? And then we also had 1 that withdrew, returned this year, and completed already. And so they're done with their days there. 9, of course, that we talked about earlier, withdrew from the district, and they never reported at all. Okay, so any questions?
When they report back, are they trying to do better for themselves when they're trying to report back? Say they left and they come back, are they just trying to just allocate the days and just go back to school, or is it just something that in their mindset they're trying? Okay, I'm going to do a different mindset.
Yeah, our experience has been that when they do come back, it's because they want to return back to home campus. Hey, let me get back in. Let me get let me get back into school into kind of a regular setting and finish school, graduate. That's typically what they come back saying. I need to come back. I want to come back. I want to finish so I can go back to home campus.
Are any of these students having traumatized? Do we have any trauma? I guess mental care for them if their disciplinary actions were caused by something that was traumatic to them, or they're just repeating a cycle, or to where they're getting some care if it's just something that's mentality causing them to act out.
So one thing that we actually do is we actually try to identify some of these students a lot of times prior to going to DAP, especially if there's a pattern that's been established beforehand. And the Southwest Cares Committees on the campus really kind of have them on their radar already. So a lot of times we've already identified the support that some students may need, whether it's at that campus, whether it's at DAP or even boot camp. And we do have our RPs, our restorative interventionists on our campuses who do make visits to boot camp to not only find out, hey, is there anything that you're needing over here? Is there anything that we can support you with? But also it's with the idea of actually bringing them back to home campus. At some point, you're coming back. We want you back. We want to make sure that that transition back is a successful transition for you. Because ultimately what we don't want is for them to reoffend and go back. So
There are a lot of times that some of the students that are not reporting were transfers in, and they're reporting back to their home campus. They weren't here, and so they got in trouble here, but then they want to go back to their home where their neighborhood school is. And so we won't see them back here. They won't want to come back this way and serve in our boot camp. They'll try to go to a discipline alternative at their district, and that's however their agreement is with their district when they go into enrollment.
Any other questions? So we also have, so another interesting piece of data that we wanted was actually to look at the number of students who attended boot camp or were assigned to boot camp in one year and then went back that same year for another reason or for a similar reason. And what we found in 2019-20 was that there was one student who actually was placed at boot camp twice in that year, and that student withdrew at that point. So in last year, in 21-22, we had 2 students placed for a second time. 1 student completed, and 1 of them was still at boot camp when the school year ended.
Is there any breaking point for our students? Like they know we're like, oh, I'm done, like I feel like I'm done with the, like I can't give no more? Or has there been any kind of like setting to where we're pushing them to get to this point, and then there's a breaking point, and then we have to recover them to keep going, we're almost there?
And I think there's always an awareness of where students are in the program, how they're doing. Are they being successful? I think if and when they do see some behaviors that may indicate, hey, I'm kind of reaching that point, then I know drill instructors and staff kind of step in and try to assess the situation. Hey, what is going on? Is there something else? Is it about the program? Is it about something that the student may be experiencing? I know what they do is they work to try to get that student to complete the remaining days successfully.
I know some folks weren't here when the boot camp evolved in Southwest ISD. Part of what we're trying to do was create a stopgap between our DAEP and JJAEP, that we want to keep our students here because we were noticing that when students went to JJAEP, and nothing bad about their program, when they're coming back, it was different levels of behavior that we had to contend with. Keeping our students in our district was something that we were interested in, lowering the budget that we were expending, and it got very pricey per day to send a student to JJAEP. And so it's been successful for over 15 years later. I think it's been 15 years. I know when I was a high school principal, we had boot camp here. So it's been quite a while that we've had the program. And it was needed then. And so I'll let you finish, but you know, every situation is going to be different. Every student's needs are going to be different. Every student's identified intervention is going to be a little different. But we thought we could do a much better job bringing our students in Southwest as opposed to one city.
I think we also talked about interrupting the juvenile to prison pipeline.
Yes, it's
To
all
really
part of that.
interrupt that in a way that would help our students be nurtured by the community, right? By people that care about them. They're not just nameless or just a number in a bigger juvenile system.
And I think Principal Pettis has done a great job of kind of trying to change the culture at DAEP. He kind of has that counselor heart about him, and so he is building a program in which it has discipline, but it goes to the heart. So as a part of the Southwest Cares team who gets to see some of the interventions, he's placed extra additional staff in there that work with students on how they feel about being there, not just you're here. And so I think that with his vision and his guidance, it has changed the culture that happens at a DAEP, and he's in charge of both boot camp and DAEP.
I think he's gifted with that population of students, absolutely.
Any other questions?
And then with the curriculum that's being handled at that level, are we seeing that we can help them with the curriculum aspect of wanting to stay at school, like, or wanting to come to school?
So the reason we're bringing this information and having and opening up the conversation is as we speak about it in our senior staff meetings and conversation about where we're going, what we're doing, we feel it was a great program then, but we think that we can use these FTEs in a better way to better address some of the social, emotional, and some of the mental well-being of our students. So we've had a lot of conversations with Mr. Pettis at DAEP. We're going to be bringing in the future an agenda item to recommend the sunset of the program because we think that we can serve students better under the DAEP without that PT aspect of the programming. And students have full and complete access to a certified teacher for that content area at DAEP. It's a little different environment. And so that's why we're bringing this information up, but to start the conversation, but it's definitely not going to end here tonight. We'd like to bring more information when we put it as an agenda item for action in the future.
When we do put it as an agenda item, we need to know, so it was put in place as like an alternative right to go to the JJAEP, which is really like, well, it's not a good place to go, right? So if we're not gonna have the boot camp, I mean, I know a couple of kids that went through the boot camp, very successful, they graduated on a good path. Had it not been for boot camp, I don't think they would be where they are, right? So I don't know, I mean, of course, you know, y'all make the recommendation on whether to sunset it or not, but will that, do you foresee that increasing the number of kids that we're gonna be sending? Because we don't, the kids that go to JJAEP, those are severe cases, right? So are we gonna keep those severe cases with the regular DAEP population? Are we gonna see an increase in the number of kids that we're sending to that place?
So right now, what we're trying to do is look at what the trajectory is that most districts have gone. So boot camps around the state of Texas have actually changed their model. So it's not a boot camp model anymore. They do a Boysville model, they do different types of model. We went to restorative practices and restorative discipline. We're trying to prevent kids from going to DAP in the first place by changing the way that our principals and administrators think about discipline. And so by providing extra staff at campuses, we prevent them from getting to DAP. You prevent them from getting to DAP, you prevent them from doing bigger offenses that cause a JJAP or expulsion. So we're trying to do it at the grassroots model where the students are at campus first. So we're hoping that whatever model is selected, because right now we're doing visits at other districts that have done some type of change or model change of their boot camp, to really take a look at what they've done and is it successful? Is it a model that would work here? Because just because a model works somewhere else doesn't mean it's in our best interest. So at this point, we're looking through that. We're going, they went to Tomball, they went to a couple other districts that have sunsetted their programs or changed and enhanced their programs to meet the needs of the kids that are coming out of the pandemic, which is different than the kids prior to that. And so we don't have that model for you yet, but when we do, we'll bring the whole plan to you and make sure that everybody understands what our preventative gap is to ensure that we don't have more kids going to GA.
Right. And so we've been doing restorative discipline for a while now, right? I mean, in our campuses, we've been trying to do the restorative instead of the punitive, right? So how has that affected our numbers that are going to DAEP? Have we seen like a sharp decrease in the kids, the number that are going there since we started the restorative? I can't think of the next word, restorative.
That one's a little harder to give data on that would make it apples to apples.
Okay.
So when they changed the coding for example, vaping. Vaping is something that happened nationally. It came out of the pandemic. More kids came vaping. So the numbers of vaping, if I take that number away, then that would change it. We also had some immature behaviors of kids who hadn't been in schools for a year and a half. That came in, students that the last time they saw a full grade was 6th grade and then they became freshmen.
Yeah.
And so it was very hard to be on a high school campus and be a freshman.
Right.
And so they had different types of behaviors. So it's not comparing apples to apples with that, but I know that we've done data digs. Aubrey and Mary Lou, Adrian, Luis Gonzalez, everybody in the Southwest Care team, Mark Figueroa, done a great job about digging through the data and putting some stopgaps in. Aubrey has put in some great stopgaps in for special populations. And so those are the things that when we get data, we're making sure that somebody's reviewing that to ensure that it's not just punitive, that it works through the system of going restorative.
Okay.
And so as we're working through our kids coming back, now that they're fully into school, we'll be able to have cleaner data to compare year after year. But restorative practice on some campuses helps so much, it really helps bring children back together. We'll be putting on top of that a new model for bullying, because that is a case that is happening more readily now. And so with all of that, we're hoping to prevent more numbers from going to DAP and escalating and elevating those numbers. But it really will take time, because we're still in that recovery mode of kids coming back and learning to socialize.
Okay, so I just want to be sure that we're not looking at it from a budget standpoint, and we're doing it because we have data that says this is better versus budget constraints, right?
Right.
Because I mean, we always,
I have a question.
It doesn't have a fiscal,
It's like
aspect to it.
okay.
I have
Alright.
a question. The models that we're looking at, are we looking to keep the kids integrated in the bigger school, or is it gonna be a model where we're gonna separate the kids out within the school?
It would still be a model that, so we still have restorative practices on campus.
Yeah.
But this will be a different model for DAEP.
So are the kids gonna be separate, or are they gonna be with the other kids? Like, if they're in DAEP within their campus, right? That's what I'm
At
understanding?
Crossroads. Mhm.
Oh, it's gonna be over
They're
here?
still at Crossroads.
Oh, I
Yes.
thought you were saying that they're gonna stay on their
No,
campuses.
we're trying to prevent them from going to DAP with restorative. So for example, if they did a minor infraction, then it doesn't necessarily have to go to DAP. They go to Restorative Circle, they can go to
Right.
a program like RISE.
But DAP's gonna stay, it's just gonna be different, but it's gonna be a separate
Yes.
campus.
It'll be a
Okay, I
local
misunderstood,
system.
I thought everybody was splitting back into their campuses.
We would
Okay,
add a
I
level
understand.
system to our current DAEP.
I see.
I have a question, and how do you determine whether they're gonna go to another program or where you're gonna send them? Who determines that?
Our hearing officer.
Dr.
And then the
Sabella,
level of
sorry.
offense.
Right,
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to update on district demographics.
Got it? Alright, I'm just gonna piggyback. This is really part two of our field trip that we took to go see all our neighborhoods, to get eyes on ground zero where we're seeing all our property. What I did is I took the demographic study that we had this past spring, and there's a lot of data on there, so I'm not gonna cover everything, but I'll hit the highlights to make sure that we have a clear picture. First, to really talk about enrollment, I know Ms. Duffy talked about where we at. Last snapshot, we were at 13,277. And at the end of the year, we ended around 13,400. And as of this snapshot, we were at 13,700, which is a tremendous jump. It's about 347 kids. It's over 480 kids from last snapshot. So from last October to this October, we grew about 480 kids. Now, we're not back to pre-pandemic, the 13,800, we're pretty close. And there's some pockets, and really, you can see there, and it's not, and you know this, when we go on our trip, you know where the development's happening, you see where apartment complexes are. The three key areas that you can really look at is Maple Creek, Southwest Elementary, and Spicewood. They've seen it the most, but overall, the majority, I say majority, not all of them, have seen increases in their enrollment, whether it's 10 more students than we projected based on that. We do have some underperforming as far as population growth campuses, and I'll talk briefly about those. A lot of data on here, but the yellow column is basically I went in there and I changed the numbers that he had, because that was 2021, 2022 from last year, and I put what we actually have this year. So you can see the actual enrollments, like this example, Big Country. The column next to that, he projected for this year to Big Country to get 629. Well, we're still in the year, so we could still get to 629. But as a snapshot, we were at 617. And so the idea behind this chart is we take a look at our campuses. What is our max capacity? We had to put all the kids that we had in the Big Country What's the max? 880 kids. We could possibly fit 880 kids. But functionally wise, like if you want it to be functional and running smoothly, which is a positive and negative, we want a campus that can fully run itself financially and everything. 760 is kind of like that mark, right? A lot of our campus used to be there, and over time it's gone away. So you can see based on that, in really all our elementaries, the prototypes are all kind of the same. So the functionality is a little bit the same for all of them except for Bob Hope. So we look at that. So like if we see growth, if we get around 760, then we're going to really have a problem. So the idea is to take this chart and through his study and looking at the neighborhoods, go across over the years and see where we might be in 10 years, 5 years, 7 years. And so that's what we're looking at. On your chart, you'll see the peach where he starts to shade it. That's where he's saying you're going to see growth in those campuses. So an example, Bob Hope Elementary, Bob Hope being our smallest campus, has about 480 kids that would make it functional. Right now they're about 450. And over time, because you got Hunter's Pond kind of building out, that could, it looks like it's exploding, but it's just exploding over our capacity. So that's an example. That's a way to read this chart. Some key things on this page here are Indian Creek and Hidden Cove. Those are the ones that we've been concerned about their growth because they're kind of, they're landlocked. There's no development happening there. So as we get into the future and we start talking about, okay, where are we having growth and what campuses are we going to have to alleviate as far as population growth, we're going to need to use some of these campuses that have room. And so you can kind of see by seat. So if you go to the yellow column, like right now, Hidden Cove, right now they're at 521. We pretty much have 230 seats available if we wanted to get to that functional number of 760. And then Indian Creek right now is at 442. And he predicted we'd be at 450. But 442, we really have about 300 seats that we, at one point, Indian Creek was at 700 students.
Yeah.
And so we have capacity to fill classrooms in those campuses. Unfortunately, they're not next to any places that have a lot of growth. One campus that we have to keep our eye on, that, and Brent's not here so I can throw him on the bus, that he kind of missed, is Meadow Creek. So he predicted Meadow Creek at 560. So if you look at what he predicted, 560 this year, they're already at 644. And that's the Scotts opening up. It's that huge apartment complex that opened up. We have tons of kids coming in, and they were having them in the spring, and really at the beginning of this year. So based on his data, I'm working with him to get a better projection, because we may have to look at Medio and how we're going to alleviate Medio Creek, because they're already at 7, and there's 6 something, and they haven't even opened up that Lennar Home development that's about to come on. So we really need to look at Medio Creek, how we can alleviate them. And when I'm saying alleviate, I'm talking about boundary change. How can we move kids from Medio possibly to Indian Creek or Star Harbor to open up more spaces at Medio for future growth? The next page is probably our biggest page. The one that I want you to keep your eyes on is Sky Harbor. Sky Harbor is kind of like Indian Creek, landlocked, not a lot of room for growth unless we kind of facilitate it by changing some boundaries, and I'll get into that later. Southwest Elementary is another campus that is going to fill it. You can see the projection over the time right now. Brent projected about 669. He's not that far off. They're at 654 over this year. They're going to probably add more students, so they'll probably be closer to 669, 670 by the end of the school year because of the developments happening at the preserve and along 1604. And you can see over time. He says basically in 5 years, by 2026, 2027, we'll be at 890. We'll be above the max capacity that Southwest Elementary can to take on. So the question will be, where do we push kids along the 1604 corridor to help alleviate that? And so we're going to have to look at, neighboring campuses. So you have Elm Creek. Elm Creek is our largest. They're at 700 right now, so they can probably only take 660 more kids. But they're already pretty at capacity. Big Country, Crewell, they have room in those areas, so that means something we need to look at on alleviating the Southwest Elementary. And then our biggest concern, which you all know from the trip, is Spicewood Park. 610 is what he projected. They're at 590 by the end of this. Probably by January they'll be at 610. But you can see in the next, in 2024, there'll probably be 1,000 students with the growth that they're having. And then you can just see how it explodes. I mean, by 2031 it'd be at 2,000 students, which there's no way Spicewood could take on something like that. Sun Valley's also. Solano Ridge is still growing, there's still some development, so that's one area that keeps growing. And so I bring this up because overall, our total enrollment in elementary is about 6,200 kids, and we have about 1,800 seats that are functionally open. It's just strategizing on how we're going to get kids in those seats that are available to open up seats for the kids that are going to be coming. And so we're going to have to look at that. We'll have to get a through planning. I'm going to show you some charts just to give you some ideas. Nothing's in stone, just kind of like what we're thinking, what the growth and planning is going to have to look at, and how we're going to move forward. Middle schools, I should have changed the date because this is actual data from this year. 2 middle schools that are, actually all of them are a little concerning. Really, McCullough Middle School is at 677, and based on Brent, and that's because they're receiving kids from Indian Creek, Sky Harbor, who have smaller cohorts. Over time, McCullough looks like it's going to lose enrollment. The question we have to answer is Resnick is going to grow because of the area they're in. So how do we alleviate Resnick? And McCullough just makes sense. How do we redirect students to McCullough that are now going to Resnick? And I'll show you the charts of what we did. The problem we had in the past is we opened Resnick was how do we get kids from McCullough and McNair to Resnick?
Right.
And we fixed that problem, but now we got to kind of reverse it. The other one is Scobie. Scobie we predicted to be at 782. They're actually at 856 right now. The middle schools are not as scary because there's a lot of functional capacity in our middle schools. Now, nobody wants a middle school of 1,300 kids, but McNair was pretty close at one point. We built those. They have space, but we really want to make sure that we can kind of make it equitable as far as population across the district so we can better serve kids. Because, you know, bigger campuses, you have more people trying out for sports and fine arts, and it takes away maybe for some kids that don't get to make the team. So we like to have a good spacing of those students. So we're going to probably have to look at how we alleviate and grow McCullough, but also look at Scobie and Resnick and how we're going to deal with their population growth. And then the high schools. The high schools are pretty steady. A lot of it's going to be with, I don't know how to say it, but word transient. We see that, you know, we have kids coming back. Our high schools are at the largest they've ever been. But they're going to start feeling that growth loss that the middle schools are feeling right now from the elementaries. So it'll be some years before they catch up. Or it may fix itself because of all the growth. And also we have our CAST-STEM. As we continue to enroll kids from our high schools into CAST-STEM, that will take enrollment away from the high schools. So the more kids that we get internally, because I'm not talking about external kids, but if we're going to grow CAST, a lot of kids that are going to CAST are our kids. So they're going to come from one of those schools if we can get them recruited to CAST. Now, we all went and saw, really these are our top right now, and these are from the spring, so these aren't updated numbers. But I can tell you right now, we have over thousands of homes that are already developed and a bunch of plots that are being plotted out, and utilities are going in, streets are going in. And if you look up there, and I only put this up here because you can see the redundancy of the elementary that's really going to be hit by all these subdivisions, and it's Spicewood, Resnick to Legacy. And then you have some mixed in. And some of this list is missing new developments that weren't even here in the spring that Brent had. So right now we have 933 homes. This was as a spring that were processed and sold. We had 1,600 vacant developed lots that was as this spring, which if you drive now, they're actually building on. And so we had an additional 4,100 lots in 2022, the spring of 22, that were available to develop and plan. And then we probably have, I think, 5 multifamily home apartment complexes being built and being almost ready to process some units. So we got a lot of inventory. It is also a weird market right now. Interest rates have skyrocketed. The price of homes have gone up. But the thing about our district, and I was talking to somebody, that our prices of our district homes are still affordable, even though they increased. And so people that were going to move somewhere else, they thought for maybe can no longer afford the $350,000 home with a 7% interest rate, they may be looking to our area. So it may still help us in that aspect. So here's a little picture of all the really hot spots. They're circled with all the different subdivisions popping up. Talking about zones, and there's a theme here. For a long time, Elm Creek, Southwest Elementary, Medio, and Spicewood, they were huge zones because there wasn't a lot of neighborhoods, so we had to really spread them out, especially Spicewood. It covered a lot of area. And so over here, you have an area this is like Von Army. And we moved these kids to Spicewood, but they go to McNair. So there's some things that we got to kind of maybe fix. And then I'll get to the bigger picture. So let's start right here. Let's start with this one. So we're talking about Southwest Elementary. How do we help? Right now, these are pretty much being built out. Houses are down. People are living here. Applewood is fresh and new, and they're starting to build homes. That apartment complex is about to finish. And so the idea is, who do we move and where do we move them? And so when we get into growth and planning, we're going to have to ask this question. And it's always better to move a subdivision, an apartment complex that has nobody in it, and say you're going here, instead of having all these people in there and say, hey, we're moving all of y'all. And then, there's a lot of process to that, public meetings and going to HOAs and things like that. So those are decisions we may have to look at is, do we move Applewood somewhere else, maybe Clearwater to Big Country? And then from there, what middle school did they go to? Because if you go to Big Country, you would go to Scobie, but you saw Scobie's numbers. I don't know if we can move Applewood to go. So it may be one of those deals where you're going to Big Country, but middle school, you got to go to McNair. So those are questions and things that the growth and planning is going to have to look at. Now this piece right here, I know it looks a little weird, but this is this Von Army area to Somerset Road runs right here. And so this is Spicewood Park, even though it's all the way up to 35. So we're going to have to look at this area and how many students are in this area and where they could possibly go to elementary. And then we're more than likely going to need to move some kids that are off Somerset Road, especially on the side where Benjamin's is, the Tim's and the Bristol here apartment complex. You have the Fisher Road subdivision. Because you have so many different subdivisions happening, we're going to have to alleviate Spicewood, and I don't even know if that will be enough. So we may even have to look further in. So where do we send these kids? And if you really get in your car and drive from here to Spicewood or here to Medio or Indian Creek, it's not much difference because we just don't have an elementary here. So future we would need an elementary here for all this development because all this is being groundbreaking, Camino Real. So those things will be big when we get there. So that's what we'll have to look at. We'll need to get numbers, how many kids are going to live there, projections, how many kids live here, and how does that help and hurt the campuses. Sometimes I kick myself because we're going back to this because we were trying to figure out how we could help Indian Creek grow, how do we get kids in Resnick. So right now this is, so you have Sun Valley, and then you have this little section here that's also Sun Valley on the other side of 410. But on this side, you have these students going to Indian Creek. But this whole section right here actually goes to Resnick. And then all this section here, Cormorant Hills, and then you have the multi-home or the park there. Yeah. And then across the street from Medio, you have all this section here that are all going to Resnick. And so, maybe alleviating Medio Creek, do we take this? This is also Medio Creek. How do we get Medio Creek some relief, also Resnick? And so those are questions that we're going to have to look at, specific pockets. The difference here is there's people living there, so there's going to be some meetings and discussions and see if that's feasible. Before we say that, we're only looking at maps. We don't have data on students, how many live there, what would be the impact. If we move Carolina Hills and there's 300 kids there, maybe McCullough can't handle that. We'd have to really get into the weeds, into the numbers of those.
I remember when we moved that little triangle.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one in the
No,
middle.
this group was really upset with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the time, we were looking at Sun Valley, and the Sun Valley growth we had to alleviate Sun Valley because it's along Ridge, and that was the group that we sent over to Indian Creek because we also had to fill up Indian Creek. So we pretty much moved all these boundaries, and I remember that. So.
And we can move that area back to the schools that have less.
Well, the thing is, the people that have less are over here already. Now, middle school wise, we could probably move them from Resnick to McCullough, but I don't know if it makes sense for us to take them away from Indian Creek and bring them back to Sun Valley. Because they're already used to it now, and Sun Valley is, you can see their trajectory versus Indian Creek. Because we need students to go into this area somehow from somewhere.
To help Medio Creek.
Yeah, to help Medio Creek, to help Spicewood. So those will be the I don't want to say dilemmas, but the processes and the getting numbers of students and see how we can do that. Middle school zones, I bring it up, McNair is the largest because it's the largest land area but not a lot of development as far as big neighborhoods. So you can see McCullough here. So you can see where this was resident, and this is resident, and this is resident. So maybe we look at a line here where this is all McCullough now,
Yeah.
to help Resnick for its future. But then what do you do for Scobie? Because, you know, Scobie right now is 850, and there's still development happening here. It's just, we'll just have to get into the numbers and get student population numbers to really make decisions when we get to that point.
But McCullough used to be really full back there.
Correct.
And now it's not, right?
Correct, that's, yes, and that's exactly, and our building a middle school, we wanted to make sure we had enough students going there to open it, and so we really spread it out and had really good numbers. But over time, because what's been happening here, for, you know, the reasons, the numbers have gone down. And this is just when we did this kind of shows you where everybody's going. So I only show you this because it's going to be reimagined a little bit and changed possibly. So the plan, next steps, is on the November 30th, getting the Growth and Planning Committee together, show them this data, go probably through the whole demographic study with them, talk about boundaries, just give them ideas. We'll probably have to have another one in December. In December, we're going to talk about the boundaries again, really get something, you know, sustainable and something that works, transparent. Not everybody's going to be happy about decisions, but we're going to have to be able to go out to the community and show why. And then talk about our future too, because even though we move boundaries, it may still not be enough, especially with the growth that's coming there. And then talk about a future bond down the road, and get growth and planning, get a recommendation to the board sometime in January. It's always better if you're going to change boundaries to give somebody a good couple of months to understand what's happening. And then we'll have a grandfather clause. You're allowed to go to other campuses, but you may have to take your kid if you want to keep them there.
You think sometimes that the parents do want to keep their kid there, so they'll drive them there.
Correct.
And they won't send them to the school where they're supposed to be going.
And we already
that's even happening now because now we have an open.
We let people do that. They'll have that decision to make, but if they wanted to have transportation and things that we're doing, like that we provide, they would need to go to the campus we assign them to. But if they decide, hey, we want to leave them there, we'll have a grandfather for the percentage of them, but then if they want to take our transportation, they're going to have to go where we can transport them.
Based on available space.
Correct.
And do you think that we may lose some students to closer boundaries right across the, say, that triangle? I know there's a school right behind it, so
Yeah.
some of our kids actually go to the school right in the
Correct.
backyard.
Well, I think that, especially that triangle, I don't think we would change the elementary zone as much as the middle school. So we'd be actually sending them to a closer middle school. Because right now, that triangle area, they're all going all the way to Resnick, and they're passing McCullough, like, on the way over there, like, every day. So it would actually maybe help them to be closer. So I don't know, that could be a plus. But then again, we would let them still go if they want to, but they'd have to transport themselves. And I'm not saying that's a decision we're gonna make yet. That's getting with the committee and hearing from the folks on the committee and seeing what the feedback would be from there.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you, Brandon.
Uh-huh.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're gonna go to update on the online auction results.
Yes. Mr. Kruger is gonna give you an update on all those items we sold in the public auction.
Yes, ma'am. So this year we had to move up the auction approximately 2 months because of space that had items crammed in there. So the auction took place September 27th through October 6th. There were 155 lots. The district grossed $74,968 and netted the $59,830.63.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any questions? There was a lot of technology purged, but that was what most of the items were.
Awesome. Okay, we already did the Blue Santa, right? Okay. So item 7, we will postpone till, after closed session. We don't have anything under administration and human resources. Business and finance. Consider approval of the 2021-2022 district financial audit.
Yes, ma'am. District required to hire an independent auditor to come and audit our financials, compliance, et cetera. So tonight with us, we have Coleman Harton, Derek Walker, so he's here to present on our district audit. So I'm gonna turn it over to him.
Also like to point out, we have our accountant.
Oh, Jennifer's here.
This is critical, does a great job.
board, Dr. Barstow, thank you for having me. Expanding on that, your staff and management do a great job with their books. And so I'm an accountant. I don't necessarily like to public speak, so I like these clean audits where I can be short and sweet and get out of y'all's hair. And I know y'all probably don't want to hear all this as well. So I'm going to go over our opinions. We have 3 different opinions in here, and then go over some fund balance numbers and some budget numbers. And if y'all have any questions, please stop me at any point. Very informal. Does everyone have an audit book, or do y'all have it online? Okay. If you'll flip to page 4 and 6. This is our opinion letter on the district's financial statements. We also give an opinion when the district receives federal funds, and that's an opinion on the internal controls of the district, some compliance issues, and then also when the district receives over $750,000 in federal funds, they're required to have an audit on their major federal programs. In all 3 instances, the audited opinion was a clean or an unmodified opinion. This is the highest level of assurance that an auditor can give on a set of financial statements. So congratulations to the district in that regard. So to look at some numbers, because I'm an accountant and I like numbers, if you'll turn to page 22. I usually spend a little time on this schedule because this is it's a fund statement. It's what y'all see on a month-to-month basis, what you budget on, etc. So on this, so this is in essence the income statement or the profit and loss of the district for the year. And we do present some funds as major. Your general fund is always major and will always be in a separate column. And if some funds meet a certain requirement as far as percentage, they'll show up as a major fund, but y'all didn't have any other major funds this year. So lumped in that other funds include your debt service fund, your capital project fund, your child nutrition fund, Title I, etc. Those can all be found individually in the back in Exhibit H1, H2 if you want to look at it. But for this purpose and this financial statement, they're all lumped together. So if y'all don't mind, just to go over a couple numbers. In that first column, your general fund, you can see that the total revenues for the general fund was $148 million. Total expenses, which is about 3/4 of the way down, was $146 million. In 3 lines from the bottom, you can see the net change or the increase in the general fund balance was roughly about $3 million for the year. This left the general fund with an ending fund balance of $85,966,172. So we always kind of want to see an increase in fund balance. It just means that the district is, living within its means, being able to put a little bit in that savings account. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you spend fund balance. That fund balance is kind of like a savings account, just like you or I would save up to spend a car, buy a car, buy a house, or whatever. So there are projects during the year that, district, that would result in a decrease in that fund balance. So on your other funds, same deal. Total revenue was $60,791,000. Total expenses for all those other funds was $77,197,434. In all those other funds, there was a decrease, 3 lines from the bottom, of $15,916,000. So bear in mind, real quick, I just wanted to explain that decrease in fund balance. The capital project fund is in that column. And so when y'all issued debt and y'all had those bonds, just give you a wild example. Say that debt issue was $100 million. Well, in that year that you issued that bonds, those debt, your fund balance went up $100 million. But then when you start spending that on those capital projects, if you spend $50,000 the next year, your fund balance is going to go down that much. So the biggest part of that decrease is attributable to y'all spending your bond proceeds in that capital projects fund. So overall for the district, 3 lines from the bottom, the net change in fund balance for the district was $12.8 million. That was a decrease, leaving the district with a total ending fund balance of $102 million. real quick, if you'll just turn to page 29. So we're talking about fund balance. That's your residual, your net income, your net worth, whatever it is. Some of that is not really spendable. So on page 29 at the top, we detail what that fund balance has. Some designations, it has some restrictions. The total non-spendable amount, and by non-spendable, this is the amount that the district has like an inventory, whether it's food, whether it's supplies, whatever it may be. 843,000 of that is in inventory. There is 17,283,000 that is restricted. Restricted meaning it's either in the debt service fund, and those funds have to be specifically used to pay off debt. There's some that's restricted for scholarship, and some that have federal or state restrictions that you can't just go spend on whatever you want. Of that, so in addition to that, the district has also committed fund balance for construction, infrastructure, and some of it is for campus activity. Of that fund balance, 22,326,000 is committed. That can be changed with board authorization and moved to unrestricted. And then the remaining amount is unassigned, which is 61,780,000, and you can use that for whatever you want. So I say that. Brandon knows better.
Yeah.
Last schedule I want to go over is budget comparison schedule. If you'll turn to page 59. We summarize everything that, you'll probably have a budget amendment every meeting probably, right? So that first column, this is for your general fund. That first column is your original budget. That's what's passed before the start of the fiscal year. That second column is your final. After all those budget amendments during the months, that is your final revised amended budget. And then that third column is your amended budget. Not your amended budget, I'm sorry, your final numbers. Fourth column is the difference between your final numbers and your final amended budget. So I'm gonna pay attention to that far right column and just look at the variance between the two. So revenues came in 2,385,000 more than what was anticipated on your general fund. And you can see some changes there. Your local revenue was 4.9 million more than what was anticipated. State revenue was 4.9 less than was anticipated. And your federal revenue was 2.4 million more than what was anticipated. We didn't have any budget over expenditures. It's something we really like to see, because otherwise we have to mention that. TA likes to mention it too in their letter. So no budget over expenditures. Good job on that. 3/4 of the way down, total expenditures were 17,566,000 less than what was anticipated. So other than that, once again, it was a clean audit. Appreciate all the help with your staff. It's a long, intensive process. We start back in July, and then here we are now. Sorry I missed Blue Santa. Was Blue Santa here? He didn't come?
He's still trying to get his schedule straight.
Can you move me to the December meeting? So we appreciate everything, and if y'all ever have any questions, our number's on here. You with Brandon as well. I'll be more than happy to answer anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Board members, do you have any questions? Okay, if not, I need a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to B, consider approval of the 2022-2023 District Capital Project Plan.
Yes, ma'am. So, meeting with the facility subcommittee and also with district staff, we've been going around looking at some small projects, some projects that we can do with our small GC, some projects that we can do with our staff. And so this is a preliminary list that we're asking the board to approve so we can kind of move forward. Anything over 50,000, we'll still bid it out and bring it back. But we're asking the board to approve this list. There'll probably be additions because there's some things on there that we didn't have good pricing on. And obviously there'll probably be some adjustments because if you recall last year we did the wrought iron fencing and at the beginning it was like a price and then we had to come back because when we bid it out it actually came over. So we're asking the board to approve the recommended capital project plan. And then as we get into the rest of the year, we'll make some adjustments and some changes. These are fund balance items because of the size of them. We don't budget for these. So it'll also come with a fund balance request.
All right, so we need a motion to approve the 2022-2023 district capital project.
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Consider approval of change order number 2 for the Sun Valley Elementary Site renovation project.
Yes, ma'am. This is change order number 2 to North Star Elite. This is the final change order for that project, which is basically returning all unused contingency allowance, which the total amount is $40,009.97 that will be returning to fund balance because this project was done out of fund balance.
Awesome. Thank you.
I move.
We have a motion. Need a second?
Second.
Yolanda seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Consider approval of change order number 1 for the Southwest ISD Transportation Department renovation project.
Yes, ma'am. This is the change order number 1 and also the final change order, again returning unused contingency allowance. This was a bond project for the transportation department, so this change order will be returning $74,956.23 to the bond fund.
Thank you. We need a motion.
I move.
Second?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Consider adopting resolution to join and participate in the Southeast Texas Purchasing Cooperative Program.
Yes, ma'am, I have Mr. Morgan here from the Purchasing Department. He's gonna give you an update and ask for a recommendation.
Good evening. We joined purchasing cooperatives because based on the expenditures that we do based on certain categories and certain vendors that we're using. And our printing shop is interested in purchasing a printing press from the Canon company. And with that, we have to procure it because it's going to be over $50,000. So we're asking if we can join the Southeast Texas Purchasing Cooperative Program. It's no cost to the district. It doesn't cost anything to join it. And it's just basically making sure that we could competitively procure the product. So I'm asking if we could, the district, if we're going to approve to join that purchasing cooperative.
I move.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, say no. Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Consider approval of programming and master planning of the Central Office and Professional Development Center.
Yes, ma'am. The district staff has brought to the board the potential to build a new central office in the future. What we're proposing is for the design services for that new central office / professional development center. RVK Architects is one of the firms that has been on our RFQ for the past 4 or 5 years. I think it's 5 years now. They have just recently been the architect of record on the San Antonio ISD new central office that is down where the old Fox Tech football field used to be. So we have discussed with them. They have brought us a proposal, and this would be the proposal that we're presenting tonight. This would take us through the design and schematic phase. It does not include the bid and construction phase yet. So the fiscal impact is $34,500, and that would take us through all of the planning and programming portion of this to get us to a potential budget to where we know if we would be able to go forward with the project or not. This would be a fund balance item, and even I believe if we move forward with the project, it would also be a fund balance item potentially.
Okay.
And so part of the planning is to bring them in because obviously central office, we have multiple divisions. They would interview CNI, HR, business finance, kind of settings we would need, what kind of, like, building would it look like, is it a community center, professional development? So they come in, a lot of it will be finding and meeting and interviewing everybody, to get an idea. This is something that we've never done really before. So it's a starting point to see, what we can design, and then we can go from there afterwards, whether it be a bond project or it might be a fund time to look at.
Okay.
And it will be a phased project.
Yeah, in a phase, so we'll probably do it in a phase, alternate type of deal, just depends, on what, we get into the planning.
The cost.
I move.
Okay.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Is this for a possible renovation or a complete, new building?
This would be, a demolition and rebuilding of some area, just depending on what we best fit, we would have an architect, engineer, and civil, all that. Would be a new building.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Okay, we have nothing for curriculum and instruction. Lloyd, do you have one more thing before we go into closed session?
In front of you, board members, there's a whole list of really exciting opportunities coming up to participate in, so I won't go over them individually, there was a number this time of year. Also want to point out, we have two important birthdays this month. We have Mr. Wanda Garza Lopez has a birthday coming up, and Ms. Dalila Garcia also has a birthday coming up. So
Happy birthday, guys.
Happy birthday. Okay. So, as permitted by sections 551.001-551.146 of the Texas Government Code, we will go into closed session. Okay, we'll go back into open, meeting. What time is it? I don't have my.
8:06.
8:06. Going back to, section 11 under closed session, regarding the superintendent's recommendation on personnel.
I move that the board approve the personnel recommendations as presented by the superintendent.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Thank you. Pursuant to Texas,
There's another motion under.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was,
Oh, is it? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. It's
I was like, I thought it was in there.
it's
My
separate.
fault, my fault.
Already I'm nervous, Lloyd. Okay. We're move on to the one about deliberation regarding real property.
That's the third.
That's the second. That's
No.
B. Right? It's B.
We can do that one.
Okay. I move that the board direct the superintendent to negotiate the potential purchase of property as outlined in the closed session meeting.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. D, consider and discuss the recommendation to propose mid-contract termination of the probationary contract of a SWISD employee.
I move that the board propose the mid-contract termination of the probationary contract of Christine Cochran, and further move to authorize the superintendent to provide written notice to Ms. Cochran of this board action as required by law.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. That's all of our action items. Dr. Versta?
Yes, ma'am. Just like to remind everyone, this Friday is an early out before the week of Thanksgiving. And if you are looking for some real great action, there is a barbecue showdown taking place as a fundraiser to the Fires Club. I believe Mr. Brandon Chris is going to do some exhibition barbecuing at that event. If you are interested in being a judge, please let Mr. Kruger know. The first category for judging starts at 11 a.m. and I think every 30 minutes after that, hour and a half after that. So if you're interested in being a judge, that's the gentleman to see back there. It's a really great event. My understanding, if you want to eat a lot of beef,
go to Freighters Village on Saturday.
Awesome, thank you. And thank you, everyone that stuck around to the end of the meeting. We will adjourn the meeting at 8:09.